What is your hot take or your most controversial opinion about the real estate market, industry, or real estate in general?
I just got goosebumps. We could go a while on this one.
All right, let's hear it.
My biggest hot take is realtors are salespeople. There's a trending audio, you've probably seen it on social media, where I'm not a salesperson. I help, I guide. No. You're a salesperson.
Today, I am so excited because we are joined by Jeremy Davis from Utah. He's going to tell us all kinds of cool stuff about his real estate journey. So I wanted to just hear from you kind of first. I always love the origin story of how did you get into real estate? What got you to this point? So give me your kind of Cliff Notes version of your real estate journey.
Yeah, and when we say Utah, maybe say the promised land. That's a good way to say it. So I've got an interesting story. I was a religious professor for a couple of years. It just lit me up. I loved it. I taught a lot of the youth in religious studies. And then I had a friend that said, hey, come get into door-to-door sales. And I was like, sure, let's give it a shot. So I left 2 teaching jobs, got into door-to-door sales. In my first 4 months selling alarms door-to-door, I made $100,000. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like 3 times my salary of both my jobs. So I was married at the time and I was like, let's do this again. So we went out the second year and almost doubled my income. And then we went out the third year and my income went up again and again and again. We ended up being there for almost 10 years. And then my wife, after having 3 kids, was kind of like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to travel anymore. I'm done. Because how door-to-door sales works is basically you go to a different market every year. They drop you off and they say, good luck, go sell a ton of accounts. And for an alarm rep, if you sold over 100 accounts, you were doing really good. I was anywhere between like the 250 to 315 range. And so I was in that top percentile. We were making really good money. But when my wife was done, I told her, happy wife, happy life. Let's do what you want to do. So we blindly just picked a spot north of Las Vegas where I grew up. And we bought a house online, moved there, didn't know anybody, had no database. And I was like, man, what can I do that I can make the same type of money and have a similar lifestyle? And I had a couple of friends in real estate. And that was kind of why I got into it. I wanted the same lifestyle, wanted the same type of money. So I got into real estate. I didn't know anything. I had never bought a house. I didn't have any investments. I'd made a lot of money, but didn't do anything with that. We traveled the world. So I got into real estate. My first 6 months, I sold 25 homes, going door to door. I had a couple coaches that were coaching me. I had a good mentor that was mentoring me. My first year, I sold 75 homes. My second year, I was on pace to clear over 100 homes going door to door as a realtor. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and that just spiraled me into a depression. I went down to Vegas to be with him for a couple of days. I'd come back and sell real estate, go back, come back, did that for 9 months. He passed away. And then I came out the other end just not wanting to be in the production mode anymore. I didn't want to do it. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And then coaching kind of fell on my lap and realtors wanted to know how to go door to door at a high level. And I've been doing that for the past year and I'm just more thrilled about life than I ever have been. So that's kind of the origin story.
Quite the story. I love that. So, first, the shift from teaching to door knocking and door-to-door sales is a very big transition.
Oh, yeah.
That is just like complete 360 on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. But clearly, it worked out. What year was that transition from alarm sales to real estate sales?
Yeah. So that was, I think it was January. It was like the first month of 2020, end of 2019, around there.
Okay. Wow. Mm-hmm. And so that's also quite the interesting time to get into it too.
Yeah.
Coming into something around 2020, huh?
Yeah. It was good timing. I had like a handful of months where it was like super normal. And I picked up a couple coaches and I was like, okay, like I'm getting the hang of this. And then COVID took off and it was perfect timing.
Yeah. Pretty interesting timing to navigate in the real estate world. So Now is your main focus today is coaching, not so much on the production side, but do you have a team or do you have people who are still operating or do you mostly refer out deals when you're getting them?
Yeah. So I'd probably say right now I'm about 90% coaching. We have the brokerage side. Also, we have the coaching side. We're international on the coaching side. So that's about 90% of my business right now. And if I get a deal and I feel like I can't give good customer service, then I refer it out or I do it because it's a past client or a referral.
I totally get that. That's cool. So, I know I've heard from agents before, because our main business, a lot of where we generate business is we do a ton of prospecting on the phones. We do a ton of dialing, open houses, and we're big proponents of self-generated business.
Yep.
Of course, social media is a great supplement. Online lead gen can be awesome, but really having a way to like go out, and if I know I need to get a deal, I know based off of data, I can go and get a deal if I knock on enough doors, hold enough open houses, or call enough people. That being said, I definitely have heard from a lot of agents, their objection usually is, oh, that doesn't work anymore, or, oh, that doesn't work. And so it's always fun to navigate those conversations. I'm sure you've had some of them as well.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say to an agent who says, oh, door knocking does not work, I'm not going to door knock?
Yeah, I would have them get on a phone call with me because it works. My first week in the business, I got into 15 homes, just going door to door. I didn't even know the language of real estate. I just would knock on their doors and talk to them about the equity in their home and real estate, how long they had lived there, build some rapport, and then I'd get in the house, and then I'd pull up on Zillow. I didn't even know how to get into the MLS at that time. And we would just kind of ballpark the price of their home. And with buyers, I just was really good at hunting down deals, and I love the competition of it. And so during the time of COVID, people were offering, there's like 20 offers per house, and I had a 99% acceptance rate on the buyer side because I was very good at like getting there first, talking to the seller, getting them to tell me what the seller wanted, and then negotiating the offer and getting it under contract. And I didn't know anything about real estate. It was that work ethic and the hunger to go chase down the deal. Those skill sets that I had from the alarm industry translated perfectly over to real estate. And once I started seeing them, this translates over here. It really took off. So if you haven't door knocked, we have guys all over the nation and girls that are absolutely crushing it in the coaching program. We have one realtor just got his license in January in Indiana, and he's on pace to clear 100 deals. It's probably the most I've ever seen anyone. Oh yeah. I think he's got almost 50 closed right now. He's got 12 pending and 9 active going into Q4 impressive. Door to door. So he's absolutely crushing it. We had one guy in Singapore we coached. He had 16 listings at one time. He was knocking from 9 in the morning to 10 at night. And so it works. You just need to expose yourself to people that are transacting often, be good at having good conversations, and you'll do a lot of business.
I think the good conversations piece is definitely a challenge for some people who it doesn't come natural to. But that is a wild result for somebody to go and get their license and have that kind of production in year one from doing that as your primary source of business. So when you have somebody or when yourself or when you're having one of your students go and knock a door, do you have kind of a signature approach that you have them go through, or does it sort of depend on the market and where they're at, what their objective is? What's kind of your style?
Yeah, it's very chill. It's a lot less complicated than you would think. I knock on the door and I just say, hey, Jeremy with Real, sorry to bug you. I'll be really quick. Did any of the neighbors tell us coming by? And that question right there is a pattern interrupt. So it gets them from wanting to open the door, be like, oh, stinking salesperson, and close the door. And they start thinking like, what neighbor told you you were coming by? And so it distracts them. And then you can ask, hey, the real estate market's all over the place. Have you thought about buying, selling, or possibly investing by the end of the year? Most of the times they're going to say no, but that's okay. I want them to say that. Then I'm going to follow up and say, is this your forever home? And a lot of people in those townhome communities where we focus on the transient neighborhoods, it's not their forever home. They're going to be there 2 to 4 years. And so they're going to say no. And maybe they're a year out. And I'll say, cool, what's different then versus now? Interest rates, payment, whatever. And then it's like, hey, if I could show you how to actually do that sooner and put $30,000 to $40,000 in your pocket, would you be opposed to hearing about that? And a lot of them are like, how would you do that? And then you just have a conversation. You question-based sell them all the way to the end. I've had people where I have that conversation and I put them under contract on a house that night and then list their house a couple days later. Like it can be really quick. But then also some people are like, no, I'm not doing anything. We just moved in. And so at that point you can ask, well, who do you know? What neighbors might be closer in their timeline than you? And they'll say, oh yeah, Bob over there, Shelly over there, Tessa over there. And then you just literally can go to their houses and it's super fun.
I love that. I've truly never heard that opening line of, oh, did any of the neighbors say I might come by? That's a really, really good way to kind of kick that off. Because it's true. Yeah. I would, if I opened my door to somebody and they said that, I would start thinking, oh, which neighbor, Yeah.
Yep,
So that's awesome. And do you feel like, because I imagine this question may come up from time to time too, is it applies to and works for any segment of the market, any location? I know I've heard some people, oh, that could not work for luxury and high-end neighborhoods and that kind of stuff. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
Yeah. So when I was in door-to-door sales for alarms, I knocked in Alabama, Texas, California, Florida, Utah, all over. And the same approach worked. It's just sometimes you have to be a little quicker. Like in California, they're not going to give you the time of day. So you have to be quicker. So it still works. You just have to be quicker. In the South, they're going to be way more relaxed. They're going to let you in. You're probably going to eat dinner with them. So you have to be better at like not wasting a lot of time. So it doesn't matter where you're at. The same approach works. Being in the right neighborhood, knowing how to work that neighborhood, and knowing what to say. You could be anywhere. I mean, just like the guy in Singapore, he had 17 listings from knocking doors. And when he first called us to consult him, I didn't even know people sold real estate out there. I was like, what in the world?
Know, that was my initial reaction. I was like, I didn't even know Singapore real estate functions anything like ours does.
That's exactly what I thought. And it was crazy because he would actually have to get in a boat. He'd have to go across the river, no joke, ride on an elephant to the next area to then door knock for 10 hours.
That is wild.
It was crazy. The coolest experience of my life.
And we have agents that say that, they can't possibly go out and work without their Starbucks in the morning. This guy's literally riding an elephant to a new area. That's crazy.
There's truth to that. Starbucks cures all. That's what my wife says.
I also need my caffeine to function, but that's right. I just mean that's a very prime example of like, if you want it bad enough, you will find a way to definitely go out and make it happen. I love that.
Yeah. And that's what I always tell agents too. And you're really good at this because I've watched a lot of your stuff recently is the bigger the why, the easier the how. If the vision is big enough, then the how becomes super simple. I've knocked in tornadoes where the siren was going off on the other side of town. I've knocked with pink eye where I literally couldn't see out of one eye. I've knocked with the flu. I've thrown up between doors. I've seen it all over the past 15 years. The why was so big. I had such a big goal that it didn't matter. And so I figured out a way to do it. And if real estate agents can get to that point where they know why they're doing this and they have a bigger goal, then it doesn't matter. You'll find a way to get there. No,
I absolutely love that. It's so funny that you say that. When I was starting out in real estate, well, first I started on kind of the investment side. And so I'd get these lists of pre-foreclosure and I'd go and knock those doors. And that was always fun. I had no idea what was on the other side of that door. I had a gun pulled on me at one point. I was like, absolutely just this little 18-year-old. I don't really know what's going on. And I think the second time I did, I wore high heels to go door knock in the middle of summer here in Arizona, which was probably the worst idea, but someone had told me it wouldn't work. And so I said, I will go until it works, and went out and did that. And I think that it is a true testament to just what you said, having a big enough why, you will figure out how to piece it together and how to keep going. And so for you, how do you feel like you got deeply connected enough to like your why, your vision, your purpose to just keep going? Did that just kind of come naturally, or was there something that really was that aha moment of like, this is what I have to do?
No, that's a great question. When I first got into sales, when I left my religious field, I got my butt handed to me for a month. I didn't sell a single account. I was crying on the corners. Like it was not a pretty scene. And I had to have my talk with my wife, like, hey, do we keep doing this or do I go back and teach? And I actually had a friend that reached out that had been doing it for a long time. He consulted me, helped me. And then the next couple of weeks, it just took off. And for me, it was like, hey, I'm going to provide for my family. I need to provide. Like, I'm going to be the one that makes this work. My story is going to be so cool because I made this work. And so that became my why at that time. Then when I got into real estate sales, it was, I want to prove to myself that I could make this transition, that I could go into a different industry in a different market, sell at a high level. And that was my why. Then when I got into the coaching side of things, it was my dad had just passed and I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to help people. When I went to his funeral, the chapel was full of people that I hadn't seen in years. And to me, in that moment when I was there, it was, this is what life's about. It's about impacting others and helping them. And I'm just done. I don't want to produce anymore. I want that impact. And so that then just lit me up. It took me a couple months to go through a lot of depression. But when I came out, that was like the aha, that was the why. And then at the same time, I had been through a lot of coaching programs and I felt like they didn't care about the little guys. They didn't care about the beginner agents. And they didn't want to give a lot of training to them until they paid a lot of money. So then my why became, I want that percentage of agents that fail in the first year, 2 years, 5 years. Because isn't it like 75% in that first 5 years?
It's like 90. Yeah,
it's wild.
I've heard a lot of numbers, but they're all large.
Yeah, they're large. And so then the why became, I want to pull that down. I want to have a training platform and connect with agents like yourself and others where we can provide so much content that it's literally impossible not to succeed if you'll just go work. So the whys change over time, and that's okay because we evolve, right?
Yeah, no, I think that there's so much good stuff that you just talked about in there, because I think it is really important. I'll be the first to admit, whenever I'm going into some sort of program, because I've worked with tons of coaches myself, or a course or anything, a lot of times some of the early modules are about mindset and finding your why.
Yep.
And after so long, even myself, I would kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, whatever, skip that, go to the real stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I've had some real aha moments of my own where I was like, no, that really is where it all starts and ends. And if you don't have a deep enough why, you don't have enough meaning, it's so much harder to create and keep that momentum in motion, because there's going to be days where you don't feel like doing it. There's going to be days where a deal falls through, where whatever happens, whether it's personal or business. And if you don't have something larger driving you, it starts to get really easy to negotiate with yourself. If your only purpose was, I just want to make some money and buy a BMW or whatever. And not to say that that's a bad goal, but it just isn't deep enough to really push you to keep going, even on some of those challenging seasons.
Yeah, I always tell people, and I've watched a lot of your content recently, and this is what you teach when you talk about social media, right? You need to know your avatar, what's their why, what are their pain points, and same thing as a realtor. What's your why? What are your pain points? What are you trying to chase? It's the same thing with us. When I was in school at BYU in Utah, I studied psychology, human behavior, sociology. And one of the coolest principles I learned was a confused mind on the subconscious level will always say no to what you want to do because it's just protecting you. It goes into fight or flight mode. And it doesn't want you to take the risk. It doesn't want you to go do something uncomfortable because then you'll get hurt. And so if the vision isn't clear enough and the why isn't clear enough of what you're doing, then just naturally your body's going to tell you to procrastinate, to not do it, to do something safer. There's a great book called How to Change When Change is Hard by Dan and Chip Heath. It's a psychology book. And he talks about how the brain has that emotional side, and he relates it to a big elephant. But then it has the analytical side, which is a little rider on top. And he's like, the rider can have a perfect plan. And I feel like a lot of realtors have a plan. They know what they want to how they want to prospect, and they know what they want to do. But then their elephant's sitting on the rear because they don't have a why. And so you don't go anywhere. And the opposite is true too, right? If you have a big why and you're just super motivated, the elephant will get up. But if you don't have a plan, the elephant just goes in circles. So you need both to work together. And I'm sure you've seen that a ton.
That's a great analogy, but I mean, it is very true. I think you see either side of it. You see somebody who's just super excited, but they're kind of have massive shiny object syndrome, and every little way to get a lead, they're following down that path and it's not resulting in much. Or you've got someone who's almost over-planned the process so much so that they don't have enough, to really keep them pushing. So those are definitely two things that I think people can fall victim to pretty quickly.
100%.
Well, so a big topic that comes up very often, and I'll gauge this off of your reaction here, is obviously AI. That's become a really big topic, especially in real estate. Are there any tools that you're using or that you have your students using to assist in your prospecting style that leverages AI, or what's your take on it?
That's a great question. If you guys want to know anything about AI, go to her. Don't come to me. I am dumber than a box of rocks when it comes to social media. I literally about a year ago, I attended a seminar that talked about the power of social media. And that's kind of when I dove into it. And I started following Paige Steckling, a couple others. And I was like, okay, I can get into this social media thing. But it's never been my thing. My thing's always been the technology is going to get to a point where people miss that human to human interaction. They miss shaking someone's hand. They miss going to the bank and talking to someone face to face and feeling what it feels like to be in front of a human. So that skill set, if you can hone in on it and get really good at it, then your value to the marketplace is going to be insane, because AI is just going to run through everything. And I'm sure you're seeing that more on the social media side, but you can literally have AI do anything nowadays. But AI won't go knock a door. AI is not going to talk to someone face to face. So that's always been my bread and butter. My brother always gets on me for this, that I should dive into AI, and I just won't, because I just want to really protect that skill set that I've developed. It's just not my thing, but I know that it's going to take over, and it already has.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has. I'm actually very much of the same belief as you. I think that obviously AI can do a lot of things and it's pretty incredible. And I think this is truly the beginning of what we're going to see possible. But there is always going to be a place for human connection. People want that human element of certain things. Now, of me ordering my groceries versus going and picking them out myself, I could absolutely automate any of that. Like, there's definitely places where it makes a lot of sense to have a lot more of the technology involved. But there's so many places where we have to preserve, that human element. So I think that is really important to just keep sharpening that skill set, because at one point the scale will flip and the most valuable people will be the people that can still have that human element, to service other people.
Yeah. I just watched one of your reels earlier today where you talked about automating your social media platforms. And AI for that stuff is amazing, but you still have to put your face on the screen, because that's what interacts with other people. That's where people are going to feel that emotion, and that ability to connect with people heart to heart. That's what gets people to move and transact in business,
especially in residential real estate, because it is whether you like it or not. Of course, we're operating a business here, but this is an emotional journey for a lot of people.
Right.
Every now and then you'll have that client who's not emotional at all. And it's like, okay, this is just totally transactional. Yep. For other people, I've worked with clients who are in tears throughout multiple points of the transaction, not out of frustration, but out of pure, just heartfelt emotion for this property they want, or that they're letting go of, or memories that were created there. So yeah, I think being able to still connect with people on that level is like essential. And yeah, AI clone will never be able to read somebody's, well, maybe I shouldn't say never,
because
who knows, but won't really accurately be able to read their emotions and truly have like sympathy or an empathy for that.
Right. And I always train people that come into our coaching program, or I talk to on social media. It's not your listing packet. It's not your buyer consult packet that will separate yourself. Some brokerages, it is. It's like 100-page packet that you drop off and you go through every page. But it's no, when you're sitting across the table from someone about listing their house, their most important asset where they've created so many memories, it's your eyes they're looking into. It's your hand they shake. It's what you feel when you're in front of them. That's the skill set. That's the value that you can bring to the marketplace that people will pay a very high dollar amount to.
No, absolutely. Well, so it sounds like when you're telling your origin story, it sounds like you pretty much picked up the door knocking piece as your key prospecting strategy from day one. Was there any other strategies that you experimented with, or even that you do include in your business today, that are maybe just secondary to door knocking, or was it always just all in on that one approach?
Yeah. So when I first got in, I didn't know anything about real estate whatsoever. So I went around town and I shadowed a lot of top realtors and said, "How are you doing business? I don't want to spend $200,000 in leads. How are you doing business? Well, you've been here 20 years. You have a database." And so I finally found someone, and then I went and hired a couple out-of-state coaches to help me get to this point. But it really was like, I just wanted to door knock and grind and hustle and put people under contract. And then now my business, because I coach so much, has come to social media. Mm-hmm. And that's where I've followed Paige Steckling. That's where I'm really enjoying following your stuff and building out these platforms. My real estate page where I live is now generating business for me. I've closed 7 deals this year just off of the reels and the social media and knowing my avatar. And that's incredible to me, like blows my mind. But then I've always also been very heavy on investors, because most realtors tank this time of year, the September to December, and that's where their business goes down. But investors, they buy right now because for tax purposes and whatnot. And so when I first got into real estate, I caught that. And a lot of my coaches said, "Hey, watch for this and learn how to do it." Plus, when I'm talking to 250 people a week at their doorstep, a lot of them are renters. And so now that house, the owner becomes an investor lead. I can put them into Excel. I can call them the next day and say, "Hey, I just talked to your tenants. Beautiful unit. Have you thought about picking up a second one?" So now I can get the investors rolling. And so that's kind of been my pillars over the last 2 years, has been door knocking, social media, and investors, which I never saw that being how I would do business. But I think just putting my head down and connecting with the right people, that's what it's evolved into.
No, I love that. I'm a huge fan of investors too. I try to tell agents, I think it's often overlooked. They've maybe had a conversation with an investor who was like, kind of shoo-shooed them and said, "We don't need real estate agents. We won't pay your commission, whatever." But if you have a few investor clients in your Rolodex, that is one of the best ways to stabilize your consistency in your business, because if you can find good deals, if you're a good deal finder, there's always somebody who will buy a good deal as long as you are connected with them. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. If you can do one investor deal at a 10 grand commission per month, that's 6 figures just off of that small little investor pool. And that's why recently I've really networked and partnered with Red Suit Realtor out of Utah, because that's what he specializes in. So I said, okay, let's collaborate and help more realtors understand that you only need like 5 to 10 go-to investors that are going to buy multiple properties a year. You can build an incredible lifestyle just off that.
Oh, he's awesome. I absolutely adore Red Suit and Paige. I mean, sometimes every time I do go out to Utah, which next time I'm out there, we'll have to connect in person. But every time I'm out there, it's usually with the two of them. And it makes me want to uproot and move there because they've got such cool stuff going on in business. And I do enjoy Utah, period. I think it's really cool.
Everyone does. Everyone does.
Yeah. Can't go wrong there. Well, so speaking of them, I know that there's been a lot of talk recently of, Paige and Red Suit made a transition to Real. I believe that you also joined them there. Where were you at previously?
Yeah, I was at EXP for a little over a year. Loved it.
What was it that really drew you into Real? I've heard all kinds of stuff. Some people even say Real and EXP are sort of similar. What was it about Real that was like, oh, this actually makes more sense for me and for my business, for where I'm headed?
Yeah, back when I was in the alarm industry, I caught on after a couple of years that it wasn't the shirt that I had. It wasn't the company I was representing. It was me that they were buying from at the end of the day. Most people, when I would set them up with an alarm and leave, they would ask like, hey, by the way, what's the name of the company? And they didn't even know because they bought from me. And I was able to figure out what their needs were and fulfill them. So in real estate, it's been the same way. It's not the brokerage. I have so many people that I'll list their house and they're like, hey, by the way, what brokerage is this? And how much are you charging? It's like, oh, it's this and it's 6%. They're like, okay. And so for me, it's always been a high title, raise all ships. I want to be in the right room with the right people. And that synergy will help my business grow. And so when I was at EXP, that was really cool for me to be like, oh, cloud-based company. I can help realtors all over the nation. This is really cool. And then when I saw Paige and Red Suit switch to Real, I had followed both of them for a long time. And I was like, ooh, the opportunity to work with both of those guys, that would be really cool. And then also we could help a ton of agents learn how to do social media, learn how to door knock, and learn how to work with investors. And I was like, that would be a powerhouse combination. And so I reached out to them. They reached out to me. I convinced my business partner that we should just drop ship. We had about 50 agents and all of them are transferring over right now. And from even that decision, even before we switched, it's been night and day, a complete almost fantasy. I still every day I'm like, this is just incredible.
No, I love that. I think you'd have to be blind to not see the momentum that Real and so many of these agents who are taking this step over have with this kind of action. I think it's really cool. And I always look at who's involved in stuff. And I like to surround myself with good people and people that I align with beyond just business too. I'm not just looking at something like, oh, this looks good for business. I'm really looking at, do these people align with kind of goals, vision, the way that we operate, the way we treat people. So I think that's really cool. And seeing them team up was awesome because we've done lots of like events and all kinds of stuff. So seeing them really formalize that was awesome.
Plus business is so hard, right? Like sales, real estate, it's got its ups and downs, and the downs are really low and the highs are super high. And so why not go work with people that you enjoy working with, that you get excited to go meet up with? If you can feel that way towards who you're working with, that's more important than the splits or the brokerage or the transaction fees or all that stuff.
100%. Well, so I know that you started door knocking for real estate, and that was clearly something you did that made a positive impact. Was there anything in your business that you stopped doing that also had a positive impact on your business?
Yes, I've never been asked that question. That is a great question.
Well, we all talk a lot about what you should do, but not many people talk about what not to do.
That's a great question. The first 6 months, I was all over the place. I had roughly like a sketch of a schedule, but I also wanted to produce at a high level. So I wasn't keeping a schedule. Some days I'd prospect in the morning. Some days it was in the afternoon. Some days I'd go on showings. Some days I'd do listing appointments. And it was just like all over the place. And my clients were telling me when to work. And I still put 25 people under contract, still sold 25 units, like did a bunch of listings. It was great, but it was really stressful. And I remember I had a couple coaches at the time that said, hey, you have got to get a lock on time management. You need to start time blocking. And after I started time blocking, it brought so much more peace to me. My family life skyrocketed. The time I had with my spouse and my kids went through the roof, because then I started to say, oh, a client doesn't care if I say, hey, I would love to do that, but let's do it in the afternoon. They felt more respected and more excited to work with me because I had an outline of a schedule. So that's my number one advice to that question that I've never been asked before is 100% get rid of like the craziness of the schedule and lock in on a time block system.
Oh, I love that you said that, because I do think a lot of times we fall victim to thinking the more available I seem and the more available I am to my potential clients, when in reality, it's not the case. And that's like a surefire path to getting burnt out, overwhelmed, and probably wanting to throw in the towel altogether and dropping balls that are in the air because you just simply can't handle it all when you're trying to be everywhere for everyone all at once. So I love that you said that.
Right.
All right, I have my last hard-hitting question, and Paige said that I should prep people for this question, but I prefer the on the spot. So get ready for this.
Let's do it.
This is, I'm just curious. I think that everyone has sort of like a hot take or controversial opinion.
Ooh, this is gonna be good.
I'm curious to know, what is your hot take or your most controversial opinion about the real estate market, industry, or real estate in general?
I just got goosebumps. We could go a while on this one.
All right, let's hear it.
My biggest hot take is realtors are salespeople. There's a trending audio, you've probably seen it on social media, where I'm not a salesperson. I help, I guide. No. You're a salesperson. You're trying to help someone buy, sell, invest, do something because they want to do it. And so your ability to gain that rapport, your ability to be disciplined to your schedule, your ability to negotiate their offers on the buy side, that the whole business is built around sales skills. And so many realtors are not focusing on their skill set. They don't realize that they are their greatest asset, that they need to sharpen that saw. And so a lot of them don't role play. A lot of them don't practice or study sales books. They probably have never even read one. And so their skill set just isn't sharp. So if you go knock 10 doors, I knock 10 doors, you sell 2 people, I sell 9 people, what's the difference? Skill set. And so sharpen that skill set. Go to the masterminds, go to the events, role play, all that stuff. And most realtors don't make that connection. And so their skill set is so outdated and they're just waiting for people to call them, or they just do whatever people want them to do. And it's like, no. You need to sharpen this skill set because you're in the sales industry.
That was probably one of the best answers we've had so far. That was really good. And I love that because I do always talk about the analogy of sports. It tends to land pretty well for people.
100%.
But like a professional athlete or even a college level athlete, any athlete is not showing up just on game day and expecting to win the game. They're spending hours watching film, working out, recovering, taking care of their mental, physical, spiritual bodies, everything, so that when they show up on game day, they've already like lived that day so many times and they're so sharp that they can perform at a high level. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but they then go back and do it again. And I think a lot of times we see realtors and salespeople in general that do just show up on game day with no preparation. Maybe they've got a script that they're kind of trying to frantically read off of as they're talking to somebody. And it's like, well, no wonder you're not getting great results because you aren't training like a true professional. You're treating it like it's just, your neighborhood t-ball game that you just picked up.
You're starting to poke me. This could go for a while. But yes, there are a lot of amateurs in this industry. It's very easy to set yourself apart, whether you go all in on social media, all in on door knocking, cold calling, whatever your prospecting method is. It's very, very easy to outperform a lot of the realtors in your area just simply by practicing your skill set. A lot of people, if you go follow my page on Instagram at Door to Door Real Estate, there's a reason why I have a lot of athletes on there, like speeches that they've been interviewed on. And a lot of them are Olympic athletes, because if we can understand the mindset of an athlete and just correlate that over to sales or real estate, then you'll absolutely crush it. So for example, there was an interview recently by, he's the super famous tennis guy. I can't remember his name and I'm embarrassed I can't remember.
I wish I knew, but I can't even help you there. I can't even pretend I know.
Yeah, there's him, and there's also this reel that I have that's going viral right now from an Olympic track athlete. It's almost got 1 million views. And the reason it's doing so well is because her mindset and what she talks about directly correlates to sales. And she talks about the rule of thirds. A third of the time you're going to feel good when you show up as a realtor. A third of the time you're not going to feel good at all. And the third time you're going to be on fire. You're going to just be crushing it. And that's okay. The days that you don't feel good, because it's only a third of the days. And so when I train realtors, it's always, let's go look at athletes, especially if you've played sports before, you'll kill it in sales. You just have to make that connection between the two.
No, I love that. That's really cool. I have to go. I did pull up your page and I saw a David Goggins on there. I got to see him speak in person last year. And it was pretty cool.
So
it was
cool.
Really awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was like a pretty intimate setting. I think there was only maybe like 50 of us, which was pretty crazy to be in that close of proximity and just hear, obviously he's very notable for his like clips of videos where he's just screaming at you and all this stuff. But he's so intelligent. And a lot of what he was talking about was specifically in relation to how it applies to business. So I definitely draw that correlation between sports or training like a true professional in any sense and real estate and sales. So I think that's really good.
Well, and most athletes, they know that this is an 80% mindset. It's more about how good can you be at discipline? How good can you be at routines and being okay with the boring part of the business? Like most realtors, like there's going to be multiple days where you don't do any deals. It doesn't feel like you're moving the needle at all. But can you be okay with that? And so most realtors, they don't have built into their schedule to protect and advance their mindset. They don't have morning routines. They don't have nightly routines. They don't have weekly planning sessions. They don't do anything to protect their mindset, and they're not protect or advancing their skill set. So they're really not doing anything. And so athletes, 80% of it is mental, is preparation, discipline, etc. And then they have their skill set, their practice. And like you said, most Olympic athletes, when interviewed this Olympics, they said, I just knew my body was going to show up. I didn't have to do anything because I practiced for 4 years. I've told my body what to do, and now it's going to do what I trained it to do. And sales and real estate is the exact same thing. I told you, you pushed a button. We could go for a while on this.
I could keep going for ages because I talk a lot about elevating your defaults. It sounds like that conversation around Olympic athletes, like when you train so much and you're training your body or your mind so regularly, that now becomes your new standard default. So even on your worst day, if you were virtually brain dead, that would be your default operating system versus if you don't at all and you're waiting for the perfect situation, perfect circumstances in order to show up, then it's like your chances of actually showing up that well decrease pretty significantly.
A ton. And that's the beauty of going door to door, or however you want to prospect. Sellers and buyers and investors, they're not practicing objections. Right. Yeah. So you're going to run into the same things. They're not doing any practice, but you can practice. So literally when I knock on a door and someone says, hey, no soliciting, I just automatically, it comes out for my objection handler and I just go right through it. I don't have to think about it because I've practiced it so much, which my favorite one, by the way, is that they have a welcome mat on the door and they say, hey, didn't you see the no soliciting sign? It's like, yeah, I did see that, but I also saw the welcome sign. You're sending me mixed signals. Anyways, the reason why I'm here, and you keep going forward.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. Yeah, it's so great to see just, somebody approaching real estate in a way that I know a lot of agents, especially coming in wanting a quick win, tend to think, oh, that's not going to be the way to go. But in reality, that's probably one of your highest likelihoods of getting conversations with real, ready, willing, and able people, much more so than just posting a post to social media, which I also endorse and I think is great. But like, if you want right now business, I think that that's probably one of the best ways to get it, which, leads me into my last question, which is a perfect tee up for you here, is what is your number one piece of advice for an agent who wants to do more business in the next 12 months?
That's a great question. So I always tell people, if you want to do more business, there's 3 things you need to do. You need to build a vision board. You need to lock in on your why. And why is it that you want to do this for the next 12 months? Get very clear. Like that elephant rider example we talked about from that book, Switch, from Dan and Chip Heath. Make that elephant get excited, get goosebumps about why you're doing this. Like for me, for example, in the coaching world, there's a village in Peru that you can sponsor children. It's like $30 a month and you can give them food, water, medical. Each of my kids have sponsored someone down there. I want to sponsor a village. I want to take a whole village and provide them water, medical, and that just lights me up. So find something like that. Then the second thing is build a business plan. If this is going to cost 200 grand, what's your average commission? Let's say 10 grand. So you need 20 deals over 12 months. Build a business plan. Talk to that analytical writer now. Build that out. How are you going to do it? What are your non-negotiables going to do? What do you need to do on a daily basis? Build that whole thing out. Then build your schedule out. Okay, now what do I need to do on a daily basis? What are my top most important activities? And with those 3 things, you'll go blow it up every single time.
I love that. Yeah, no, those are very key pieces of having that success in real estate. I love that. I was honestly expecting you to say, go knock on a door, but those were even
hey,
more
if that's part of your business plan, then yes, do that.
Yes, there you go. All right. Well, where can people find you if they want to dive in deeper, if they want to come learn about door knocking, they want to, have some of those crazy results like you were just talking about themselves in their market? What is the best way for somebody to get connected with you?
So you guys can follow me on Instagram at Door to Door Real Estate for my business side. I'm building that platform to be basically the most intense free giving training in the real estate industry besides yours. And or they can go to YouTube, Door to Door Real Estate, Jeremy Davis. I've built that platform as well. It's grown really fast to, hey, I just want to literally tell you how to go get 10 deals. And then if it makes sense that we work together, great. So go to my YouTube. Also, you can go to my personal page, utahrealestate.jeremy, and you can see how I'm doing it on the social media side. Or you guys can call me at 702-525-5766. I probably take about 30 calls a day just from people that want free consulting advice. I'm of the mindset of give, 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 give. And if there's an ask because you want it, I'll work together with you. But if there is no ask and you just need help, reach out.
Definitely. I think that a lot of people listen and they think they want to, and they'll probably go on your page even and creep a little bit, watch your videos, which is all good. We suggest that. But when we say reach out, I truly encourage you, send him a DM, give him a call, watch his YouTube, drop a comment, engage in some way, and really let Jeremy know that you want to connect and learn more. I think that's the best way that you can kind of cheer us on to keep giving that free information, but also how you can take advantage of it for yourself, because there's lots of free information. But when somebody's giving you that open door, no pun intended, to also come in and like have a conversation with them and take it a step further, it's super powerful. So don't miss out on that. And Jeremy, thank you so much for jumping on with me today. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you.